Hello and welcome to demo time. Sorry about technical difficulties, but nobody's watching anyways. It doesn't matter. This is all for being recorded later. If you are watching, we're going to teach you kind of how to play Innovation.
Yay!
So the purpose of this week's videos, because we're going to be doing these all week, is mostly to get our demo staff up to speed on any of the games they don't already know of ours. And today we're going to be talking about Innovation. Innovation is awesome. So in addition to teaching the games, we're going to be giving an overview of how to teach the games, which is often more useful than just straight up the rules. So Innovation is a game about all of the technologies and innovations throughout history. And that is in fact the first thing I say when I'm explaining the game. I start with that teeny bit of theme integration, because anytime that you can get theme into your rules explanation, it helps. So I start by pointing out that there are 100 cards in the deck, and each of them represent a different card or different innovation from history. Age 1 starts with things like the wheel and clothing, and I'll flip over a card from age 5 and be like through astronomy, all the way to the internet. The internet's always the top card because I put it on top of the 10 deck, because I always want to say it goes to the internet, because people know what that is. Nobody's heard of the wheel. What a bunch of dummies. So, I find it helpful to lay out a few age 1 cards, and I have a specific set that I always have out. I always have the wheel, I always have writing, and I always have archery, because all of those do very specific, basic, simple things. They're also different colors. If you pick a couple different cards to use in your demo and they're the same color, you're breaking the rules of the game. Don't do that. That will make people confused. I don't usually care what the yellow and the purple card are. Those ones are superfluous, so pick whatever you want. Probably not a demand. So, when I start talking about the game itself, I say that all the cards in the decks are of 5 different colors. These ones happen to be in order because this is a brand new set, but hopefully they'll actually be shuffled when you're demoing it. The first thing to talk about is the player's board. This is where all of your technologies will go. You're allowed to have 5 face up at a time, and as you get more of the same color, they'll replace and stack up on each other. So if you get a new yellow technology, it's going to replace your old one. And emphasizing that you're replacing ideas as you go along the game is important. Aside from that, pretty much it's easy to just get right into the explanation of the game. On your turn, you get to do 2 things. Step back one moment. One of the other things to emphasize at the beginning is how you win. People want to know why they're doing the thing they're doing. There are 9 achievements here in the center, and your goal is to claim, in a 2-player game, 6 of them before your opponent. And you've got this helpful reference card where they'll go. So if you get the achievement for the 1 age, you're 1 step closer to victory. At this point, I point out that to get achievements, you'll need to have points, and those go into your score pile. People will ask, well, how do I get points? And I'll be like, I'll explain that later. 1 second, I need more water. Alright, so touch on the fact there are achievements, you want them. To get them, you'll need points, and to get points, you'll need to have useful techs in your possession. And that's where we transition into the board. So you've got your board here, where all the technologies you've played, sit and wait for you to use them. So at this point, I talk about the turn structure. On your turn, you get to do 2 things. There are 4 very simple things you can do. The first thing is you can draw a card. When you draw a card, you look at the text you have in play. Whatever the highest one you can see on the top is the age from which you draw. And once a deck runs out, you'll draw up to the next higher age. So if all the 1s are gone, you need to draw 1, you draw 2. Pointing out that technology will get pushed forward no matter what as the cards run out is important because it shows the progression of the game. So that is the draw action. The second action is the meld action. In addition to the cards in front of you, you'll have cards in your hand. The meld action lets you take one of the cards from your hand, put it onto your board. If you've already got something of that color, you replace it. If you don't, you start a new pile. At the very beginning of the game, people only have 1 or 2 technologies in play, and they will want to get more. The third action is achieve, and achieve is how you get the achievements. So if you want one of those shiny achievements in the middle, you have to have some points. Each achievement's cost essentially is 5 times the age number that it's from. So the 1 you need to have 5 points, the 2 you need to have 10 points. It's important to emphasize here that you don't spend the points that you have, you just have to have them as a threshold. Cards in your score pile, if you get them there, are worth their age value in points. So these 3s are worth 3 age. So if I had these 2 3s in my score pile, that's 6 points, I could use an action to achieve the 1 and be way closer to victory than my non-existent opponent. Oh. So those 3 actions, draw, meld, and achieve, are all very simple. Those are the ones to explain first because they are the most atomic actions of the game. The 4th action is the dogma action, and it is the one that you'll wind up doing the most, but also the most complicated. Oh good, the sun went behind a cloud, now everything's dark. Yay, video. Luckily, it's more me talking than anything else. So people at this point are like, well, how do we use all these exciting cards in front of us? That is what the dogma action is for. When you take the dogma action, you pick a card, one that is on your board, one that's on the top. So you can't take something from the middle of a stack or something that's partially exposed. And you get to do all the things in the card. But before that, you need to look at all the symbols in play. So, for example, writing is a great one to start with because it's a very simple effect, draw 2. You look at the text and it says draw 2. So if I use writing, I'm going to be able to draw 2. But before I do that, it says light bulb draw 2. What that means is I need to count up all the light bulbs visible on my entire board. So I have 3. If any of my opponents have at least that many, they get to do writing also, and before I do it. So Kat is helpfully laying out cards and not cheating, but she failed.
I'm cheating very badly.
So if
there are
Kat
no
had
other light bulbs
engineering,
in the deck. Thank you.
If my opponent had 3 light bulbs out and I used my dogma to do the writing action, they would get to draw 2 first. Then I would get to draw 2 because I always get to use my own action. It's just whether or not I share it with people. After sharing, I get a bonus. It is a free draw action, just like the normal draw action. So I just look at my board, and even though I've got a 2 in my hand, I still draw 1 because that's all I've got in play. That's another reason that using writing is a great example giver for that first action, because you get to illustrate that it's not the highest card in your hand, it's still the draw action mechanic of you get to draw what you have in play. In addition to normal effects, so you'll see that most of these effects are in light color boxes. Archery and engineering here have dark boxes, and this is one of the actual new innovations in the 3rd edition set. Demand boxes have a different presentation, so you can tell really clearly across the table that somebody's got a demand threatening you. Demand effects work in the opposite way. When I do an I demand effect, I say, I demand that you draw a 1, then transfer the highest card in your hand to my hand. It's important that you point at the player while you do it because you are demanding things of them. And it's also important that you emphasize that the player reads that demand aloud to illustrate who's doing what thing in the demand effect. So demands work the opposite of sharing. We count up the icons. In this case it says castle demand, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 11 castles, and Kat has 3 castles. That means she is not as good at castles as I am, which is very sad for her because I get to archer her. So everyone who is susceptible to the demand has to do whatever I tell them to do, and effects will happen. There's no sharing bonus for demands. You can point out, but it's not necessarily important, that some cards have both a demand and a non-demand effect. And in these cases, you do the demand, and then you might do the second part. Sorry, you might share the second part with other people at the table if it's a 3-player game. Depends on your read of the table at this point. If people are like, yeah, I totally get it, then you can throw in these extra little bits because they're looking for strategy points at this point, not just basic understanding of the game. If they're like, oh my god, I have to count symbols, don't go to the 4 deck. let that point stand on its own. Because it's not important until they get into things later. At this point, like I was saying, if your table read is, wow, these people are in trouble, we should just get started now, don't go on and explain all the keywords that are on cards. It's fine to just get started and just really walk them through the first few turns of the game, because that's going to be better to learn anyways in a lot of cases. But if you want to, you can go on now and explain a few of the keywords that exist on cards. And the most important ones are tuck, return, splay, and just tuck, return, and splay. Sorry. So, cards will build up in stacks, and tucking is when you take a card and put it on the bottom of a stack. This is not very exciting, but it's important after you get to the splay keyword. Returning a card is putting it on the bottom of whatever deck is in it belongs to. And finally, splaying is the cool thing. So when you splay cards, you get to fan them out to show icons from the cards that you've previously buried under your technologies. And in the 3rd edition, there are these fancy little
guidelines,
lattice work, there we go, I remember the word, that connect the icons that splay. And those make the game look cool.
And they're different in every age, which is
They
super
are.
pretty.
Yeah. So age 1 is this little liney thing, and age 3. Especially if you've got people who have shown up that have played Innovation in the past but are interested in seeing the new 3rd edition stuff. That is one of the things to point out, that the new cards have this lattice work that makes them look prettier. Everything's a little bit brighter and more vibrant. And yeah. So at that point, you've pretty much explained everything you need to, and people are ready to start the game. So to begin the game, everything goes back into the deck. Each player in the game gets a hand of 2 age 1 cards. And they get to look at them. They get to say, ooh, I like these cards. And everyone picks a card at the same time and then reveals it. This is their very first technology. So I have chosen the wheel, and Kat has chosen tools. Whoever chooses the card closest to A alphabetically will go first. That very first turn for that first player, or the first 2 players in a 4-player game, is a half turn. They'll only get 1 action instead of 2. If you forget this, it's not a huge deal. But if you remember it, it's good because it does make the game way more balanced. So at that point, lead them right into the game. Say, all right, it's your turn. You can do any of the 4 actions. You can play the card from your hand with a meld action. You could draw a new card. You could use dogma to use the card you've already got. You can't achieve because you have no points and you are a sad civilization. And that's basically it. That is how you teach and play Innovation. We've got these special achievements over here. People will ask about them. I tend to say they are special achievements. They're conditions that you can meet to get an extra achievement anytime, and most of them will start being relevant in like 4 or 5, so you can sort of show what they are later on. I find it is important not to overwhelm new learning players if at all possible. So I try and leave out the crazy bits that they don't need to know about at the very beginning of the game.
I think it's also really good advice to emphasize that when they're just beginning, to just focus on their own cards, not try to worry about what every single card on the board can do, but just whatever's in front of you, that's what you can think about right now. Yeah,
it is very easy to fall into the habit of trying to figure out everything that could possibly happen. Even experienced Innovation players do this. But it will get really overwhelming really fast. So for people looking just at the 3rd edition, there's a couple other things that have changed. So the biggest change is the art, of course. So you can see that the backs of the cards are now way fancier than they used to be. I can show you an old card for contrast. Maybe. Definitely. Yes. If I had planned ahead, I would have had these cards out already. But I didn't. So you can see here, this is an old Age 1 card versus a new Age 1 card. Caveman has more detail. Also, the icons are a lot prettier and there's lattice work, and the fonts are cleaner because Alana picked them thoughtfully and not just I said, oh, that font works, because that's what I did.
Did you manage to randomly draw the same card from 2 different decks?
I'm good.
You are.
I know how to demo this game.
Yeah.
So the other thing that has happened is there's been a few balance upgrades and changes. Nothing about the base core mechanics of the game have changed at all. But we changed about, 10 or 12 cards to make them a little bit weaker or stronger based on 4 years of intensive feedback from people both playing it in person and people who logged hundreds, if not thousands, of games on Isotropic. Nothing in the base set was outright broken, except for maybe industrialization. The broken cards were for echoes.
Yeah.
But that was a result more of the rule change after we had printed it, as to how things got made. I'm going to check the chat real quick to make sure there aren't important questions. Oh. Alana says our mic levels are low.
Oh.
I hope... Well, I'm going to turn them up a little bit. Bloop. So it might have just gotten a little bit louder, and if it did, sorry. If not, hopefully you could hear us at least a little bit, because otherwise that discussion was for nobody except for Ivy. Okay. I should look at the chat more often. So that is base innovation. In addition to base innovation, we're going to talk about the 2 brandy new expansions that we've got. So, also I have this is our old prototype box. Oh no, is Cities not in here? Oh, we failed. Alright, never mind, you can't see the old version of Cities. This is the old version of the cover for Cities. Don't worry about it. The first of the 2 expansions is Innovation Cities of Destiny. And that's a lot of dirt on the side of the card. Go away. So, Cities cards have a pink back because they are fabulous. And Cities are funny looking innovation cards with no text. They have 6 icons instead of 4. And they are all different cities that were founded throughout history, including Atlantis, which we'll find soon. So the ages 1 through 10 of the cities represent roughly when they were founded with respect to when all these innovations were founded. We have a big, giant spreadsheet of dates somewhere. We don't, I lied. So, when you were setting up cities, you can do the wheel, and what you need to do is lay out each deck in the cake underneath.
In the cake?
Yeah, Carl calls this the cake stack. I don't like if you have multiple. It's like a layered
just
cake.
Going back and forth.
Yeah,
caking.
if you have multiple piles, this can get unwieldy pretty quick depending on how big the demo table is. So you can just lay them out next to the piles, either in a wheel or not a wheel. Much like the base set, there are 10 cards for each age and cities, and each of them does stuff. So for all of the innovation expansions, there are different ways that you draw the cards. You're never allowed to just say, I want to draw a cities card. You have to meet whatever the conditions are for that expansion set. For echoes, it's not having them in your hand. For figures, it's sharing. Cities, there are 2 ways that you get to draw cities cards. The first is anytime you splay a pile. If you splay a pile for any reason, using an effect or even one of the city's cards, you get a free city draw action. What that means is you look at your board, whatever the highest top card is, you draw a city of that age to your hand. There's one important caveat, which is if you have a city card in your hand, you ignore this. So you don't get to draw multiple cities until you've played them. Cities cards can be used for any of the ways that other cards do things. You can score them, you can tuck them, you can return them, in which case they go back to the city piles. You can splay them. They're exciting. Cities are good. It's important to note that in the Gen Con event listings, we did note that anybody coming to the cities or the artifacts demos should already know how to play Innovation. So hopefully you won't have to explain the whole game and then the bonus rules. If you do, I'm sorry. Anyways, as you go through the game, you will get cities into your hand. The second way you draw a city is if you take a meld action, and this is not a dogma that melds things, but a meld action specifically as the action that adds a color to your board, you get to draw a city immediately. This will usually happen early, but sometimes situations later in the game will conspire such that you get to have a city draw late in the game. So, cities do cool things once you have them. Every city has the normal 4 icons. Some of them have the bonus symbol. So the bonus symbol will have a number inside it, and that is worth that many points if it is visible. If you have multiple visible bonuses on your board, the highest one is worth that many points, and every other one is worth 1 point. So if I have both Alexandria and Rome in play, that's worth 3 points, not 4. None of the city's cards have any text on them except for the name of the city. The hex icon is always in the top right, and the top center icon is a special thing that activates when you use a meld action to meld that card. And there are 4 different types of things. So the first is the cross, and it's actually a plus. So the plus says, draw a card of value 1 higher than this city. So if I meld Alexandria using a meld action, I would get to draw a 3, and that's a normal 3, not a city 3. If a card has an arrow on it, and I didn't find any, it means when you use a meld action to meld that card, immediately splay this pile in that direction. So Baghdad, when melded, would splay its pile left. Tel Aviv would splay up. Obviously, like normal dogma actions, the arrows will get better as the game goes on. So low ages will splay left, middle ages will splay right, and high ages will splay up. The search icon. So a lot of the cards will just have a normal icon with a little magnifying glass next to it. What that means is, when you meld this card, you get to look at... So Sparta is an Age 2 city. It has a castle, and it has the magnifying glass for search. It counts as a normal icon while visible, but also when you meld it with a meld action, you draw and reveal X cards from that deck where X is the age of the city. So for Sparta, I would draw and reveal 2 normal age 2 cards. Any of them that have castles on them go to my hand. The rest get returned. If that pile is empty or you don't have enough cards, you don't draw up to the next age. So these actions are powerful, but if you try and hold on to them for too long, they won't do anything. And for like a 9 or a 10, you can't go off the end into the next age because you're drawing a lot of cards that way. The third action is a flag. Sorry, the third symbol is a flag. What the flag says is, I might be an achievement. A flag is an achievement if you have the most cards of this color. So if my purple stack is bigger than everybody else, at least as big as everybody else, this purple flag is worth an achievement. That's pretty good. And finally, the fountain. Fountains are always achievements because they're fountains. Fountains are awesome. So as soon as you meld this card, it is an achievement. The flag and the fountain don't care whether you melded the city with a meld action or not. They just go into effect as soon as they're in play. So those are all the cool things that you get to do when melding a city. The last additional rule for cities is the endorse action. So if you have a city in play, let's say I've got Loyang, whatever. An endorse action is a special action that essentially lets you double dogma something. Whatever card you want to endorse has to have its icon, its featured icon, on one of your cities. And to pay for it, you have to tuck a card from your hand that is equal to or lower than the age of that city. So if I wanted to endorse paper, which is a light bulb action, I could do that because I have a light bulb city. I need to tuck one or two from my hand. And then I get to endorse. I get to do all of the effects on paper twice. I still share them, and other people do them once. But when it comes to me, I get to do it twice, and that's awesome because it's really cool. You can endorse demand effects. You execute them twice, which is really good in some cases. And you're allowed to use the endorse action once per turn. I'm going to check the chat again because I should do that more often. Okay, nothing happened. Alright, so that is basically cities. The other things that are cool about cities, or different about cities, there are 5 special achievements, which are somewhere.
I'm not sure. Oh, they're under... No.
Here's a cupcake. Anyways, there are 5 special achievements that come with cities. They all relate to doing unusual things with cities, and they work just like the special achievements from the base set. When you're playing with cities, you do 1 extra achievement, so a 2-player game would be 2 7 achievements to account for all of the flags and fountains and things. Oh, here they are.
Okay, yeah. I punched them.
Aha! Yeah, so Glory and Victory both are special achievements you gain for tucking a fountain or a flag. Legend, Repute, and Fame each are given when you meld a city with a splay arrow and that pile is already splayed in that direction. So basically they're compensation for when you try and use one of the city's special effects and they're already done. So yeah, that's cities. Cities is actually a fairly simple expansion in terms of rules. There's not much new. The endorse action is a little bit hard to explain at first, but once you use it, it's fine. It'll be on a little reference card in front of them anyways. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. On the other hand, we have artifacts. So, the 4th Innovation expansion, which is also part of the Innovation Deluxe set, is Artifacts of History. And artifacts are...
It's purple.
They are purple, because all of the things from the past are purple. So, I'm not going to lay out all the things, but that's enough of them. There are lots of things going on with artifacts. So what artifact cards are fairly normal looking innovation cards. They look like the cards in the base set. They have icons, they have effects. They are awesome effects because they are artifacts, but they operate pretty much the same as normal things. The one exception is that instead of demand effects, artifacts cards say, I compel you to do such and such. These are backwards demands. Compel effects affect any of your opponents that have at least as many of an icon as you, instead of the other way around. But you don't do them. So Babylonian Chronicle says, I compel you to transfer a top non-red card with a castle from your board to my board. So if you have more castles than me,
Oh no.
I get to take some of them back.
Oh no.
Or, that's the only interesting one. The other ones are too complicated to explain.
I compel you to return one of your achievements.
Yes, Artifacts breaks all the rules. It messes with achievements. You can win in Age 1. It is kind of the crazy overpowered set of the 4 innovation sets. It is probably good to temper people's explanations with that fact when they come in, that artifacts is a very high-powered effect situation. The cards are... They're not broken, but they are way more powerful than normal cards. So, when you are setting up artifacts, you have to lay out the cards as such. There are a couple other crazy things that happen. There are 5 lost public cards from previous sets that were not part of previous sets. So there is a figure that wasn't in figures. There is a base card that wasn't in the base set. There is an Echoes card. There's a city, and there is an artifact that isn't actually part of the artifact set, but fine. For a demo set, they all have white backs. We're still figuring out what to do with the backs of the cards because it's complicated. What happens is, at the beginning of an artifacts game, you lay out a public card next to every age. And for any of the sets you're playing with, so in this case we're playing with the base set plus artifacts, instead of a card from the base, you use the corresponding public card of that age. Whoops, that is a 5, not a 3. So in this case, we have laid out the Newton-Wickens telescope, complex numbers, and then paper, currency, and tools are normal base set cards that occupy dig sites. Dig sites are where you get these cards from, where you will eventually get artifacts from. So currency is currently taking up the spot of where an artifact card will be drawn from. Okay, so the way you get these cards is by using the Theorize action. On your turn, just like your other 4 basic action types, there is the Theorize action. To theorize, you look at the value you would take with the draw action, so your highest top card, and when you're playing with expansions, you do ignore a pile entirely if the base cards are gone for it. So even though there are still artifact ones and echoes ones or whatever ones, you would draw 2 if you try and do a theorize action when the 1 stack is empty. You have 2 choices, and when you theorize, you get to do the dig site card of that age. You have 2 choices with it. You can either take it and put it in your hand, in which case you get it in your hand just like a normal card, or you can theorize it, which means you place it on top of your reference card. This effect will be executed for free at the start of your next turn. So when you theorize something, you're storing up a card for your next turn to do a super action with it, because you'll get to do 3 actions that turn. If you put it on your mat, you get a free draw action. So if I do this, I also get to draw 2 into my hand. Cards on the Theorize mat are not part of the game for any reason except for that bonus action next turn. They can't be affected by dogmas, they can't be affected by effects, you can't tuck or move or do anything with them.
Do the symbols count if people are trying?
They do not.
Okay.
This is not here until it's time for that.
Sure.
The symbols do count when you're executing that effect, but otherwise, no. Right, so that is theorized. So, and when it's done, it gets returned. For right now, when a blank backed card gets returned, it just goes out of the game. We're still figuring out what to do with that in the final version. So when you want to, at this point, that dig site for age 2 would be empty, which is good because eventually an artifact will go there, and we like artifacts. So let's pretend we have some cards in play. Boy, I sure do have Invention and Perspective, 2 age 4 cards, and I happen to have some age 2 cards in my hand. When you take a meld action and you meld down, so if I have Perspective on my board, which is age 4, and I take a meld action to put Canal Building on top of it, I have gone down. This lets me dig. Digging is good. So when I do this, I will get to do I'll get to draw an artifact card. So I look at the age of the card that I started with, 4. all of the dig sites from 4 down to 1 are eligible for me to draw a card from. Any of them that are empty get an artifact drawn into them now. I'm just making sure I'm getting this right. Yeah. And any ages that are empty don't get cards. You can only draw a card from an age that's not empty. So in this case, I could take complex numbers, I could take paper, I could take the terracotta army, or I could take tools. Sorry, no. At this point, I can only take cards that are artifacts. So if I wanted to draw an artifact right now, I could only take the terracotta army. And it would come into my hand, and at that point, it's just a normal card that I can do anything I want with. There's no restriction with having multiple artifacts in your hand like there are with cities. And once they're in my hand, I can just play them with a normal action, and then use them to do amazing, crazy, artifacty things. That's it. That's how artifacts works. There's a little bit of algorithmic complexity with how you actually go about drawing the cards, because you basically by the time you get to an age, somebody's going to have taken these cards because they're free draws and they're good. So artifacts will flow into them, but yeah, that's basically it. It's a little bit weird right now explaining the algorithm, but once people get it, they tend to get it. So as mentioned, some of the artifacts do crazy things. They can claim achievements ignoring eligibility. They can steal achievements. They can make you win or lose or return all your cards.
There's an age 11
right,
artifact.
And then there is...
I love that one. That one's weird.
There's an age 8 artifact, which is the battleship Yamato, which is blank, but it is age 11. It's just a giant battleship, and when it's in play, if you then took a draw action,
you would end the game.
You would end the game because there's no 11 pile.
So you can intimidate the other players.
Basically, yes. Because you have a giant battleship, which may or may not be a spaceship.
I'm also pretty okay with Where's Waldo.
Yep, Where's Waldo just says, you win.
If you have the most leaves.
If you have the most leaves, right.
Someone else who has more leaves
might find Waldo
could
first. Win. So since artifacts comes with those 5 special public cards with the blank backs right now, there are no more special achievements for artifacts, but it still does add 1 achievement to how many you need to win. If you are playing with multiple expansions for some reason, and multiple draw requirements pop up at once, I believe there's an order of precedence, and it should never happen, so don't worry about it.
Is the order of precedence just please don't play with multiple expansions at once?
No, you should play with multiple expansions, but usually there's no collisions. If you're drawing for a share, it's a figure. If you're splaying, it's a city.
Sure.
If you're melding down as an artifact. Otherwise, if you're drawing a normal card and you don't have echoes in your hand, and you do have cards in your hand, you draw an echo.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyways, that's all the things. So, give us a second. We're going to clean up the table, and then we're going to play Save the Cupcake!
Woo!
Look at all these cupcakes!
Yay!
So, Save the Cupcake is our special instant game for Gen Con this year. Pardon the glare, but we don't really have any way to fix it, so you're stuck with it. So there's a deck of pathway cards, which have lots of arrows on them. These are important because one of us is a terrible person who wants to crush cupcakes.
Hi!
That person is Kat. Kat is a terrible person. I am a wonderful person because I am the defender of cupcakes. I have laid out this row at the bottom of the cupcake pyramid. One of these 5 cards is a cupcake, and I have not told Kat which one because she wants to smash it.
It's that one, or maybe that one, or maybe that one.
What she's going to do is take these 5 ball tokens and try and roll them down the hill to crush my cupcake. Because she is, as mentioned, a terrible person. On each turn, we're going to do several things. The very first thing... Oh, sorry. We're going to have a couple cards in our hand.
I need to discard.
Yeah, we need a discard pile. Okay. The discard pile is strawberry. First thing that's going to happen on each turn is Kat is going to take one of the balls not previously rolled and put it on one of the cards at the top of the hill. Boop. So each pathway card shows 2 ways the ball might roll. It will normally take the black arrow, which will move it 1 space left or right. If that card matches the color of the top card of the discard pile, it's going to follow the colored arrow instead. So in this case, top card of the discard pile is a strawberry, and Kat has played on a banana card, so that will not happen. I wish we could get a better view of these. But I think we're just stuck with the glare. Yeah. Cat, be larger.
Feed me more cupcakes.
Oh no. It's a terrible commentary on American over-cupcaking. Yeah, whatever. That's almost there.
I can't play and hold up the blanket at the same
You
time.
must play and hold up the blanket at the same time.
Okay.
All right. Anyways, so after Kat plays the ball down, we both get to do stuff. First, I can replace any number of cards in play. So I could say, you know what? I want to switch out her card for this card. Or I could discard cards to change what color it is. As the defender, I can play any number of cards in my turn. Kat then has the chance to play 1 card. I'm not going to play any cards this turn. I don't want to.
I'm also not going to play any cards.
So, after we both had our chance to play cards, all of the balls in play roll. So in this case, that's going to move to there.
Boop.
Wait. No.
Yeah.
After all the balls have moved, we look at any cards that have a ball on them and reveal them.
Hey.
When balls are moving, they will keep moving through face-up cards until they encounter a face-down one. I don't know why it's not focusing on the table. Whatever. Alright, so that was the first turn. At the end of the turn, both players draw a card.
Only 1 card, regardless of how many they played.
Right, and since I'm the defender, I get to charge up cards, essentially, to get more and more cards. So, Kat, you get to put a new ball down.
I'll go with this path.
Put it on the dot.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we have a dot.
Okay.
Alright, so I can replace cards, and I want to do that. I'm going to replace this card here, because this pink arrow is going to send Kat over here, which is clearly where I want her to go. I'm definitely not bluffing, because the cupcake is actually over there.
Oh, I should not look at the screen while you do that.
Can you see them on the screen?
I'm not sure.
No.
But, you know.
Cheater.
I didn't cheat. I didn't look.
You
Alright, well,
are
I'm
the
going to
worst.
choose to discard this blue card, so I'm going on the blue path instead.
Alright, so now when all the balls move, since the the
Which one's
blueberry
yours? Yeah.
matches, she gets to follow
Whoop.
that arrow down. This one goes over here. Note that when you go 2 moves at a time, you don't necessarily reveal the intermediary card. And now we both draw a card. You get to draw.
Excellent.
You get to play a new ball.
Alright.
This is going well. Everything is fine. Cat's nowhere near the cupcake, so don't worry. The cupcake will be there. We're going to eat it at the end of the game. Everything is good. We're going to make America cupcake again.
I don't like this setup. I don't like this setup a lot.
I like it because you don't like it.
Yeah. I'm gonna put that there.
All right.
Then I'm gonna hold my cards upside down so they actually match with the slope.
I'm gonna do this.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
You really don't want me going there.
No, it's a bad card. The cupcake is actually here.
That would be amazing, considering
Yes.
that's not one of the places it's supposed to be. I'm gonna do this.
Oh boy. All right. So
it's blue. That's okay.
it is time for Cupcake. It's time for balls to move.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
All right. More things have happened. Okay, now you both draw a card,
Yeah.
and you get to place another ball.
Um.
So the game continues until either Cat crushes a cupcake, or all of the balls make it to the bottom, and the cupcake is safe. This will be very soon because we're almost out of
balls.
out of time.
Yeah, that too. All right. Yeah.
Oh, this sounds fun. And this also sounds fun. How do you feel about those things, Kat?
That sure is directing everyone to that cupcake.
Yes, it is. So one of the primary objectives of the defender is to make more than one ball try and fall in the same spot, which is obviously not the cupcake. If I put the cupcake here and did all these things, that would be an amazing bluff, because Kat's about to make all of her cupcakes not hit that spot.
Yeah.
So she's going to change the color to yellow, which alters where all of these cards go. So start moving from the bottom.
Alright, so that guy's gonna go there, gonna go there, gonna go there, and gonna go there. So that was not my best play.
Right. So remember,
That's okay.
if a ball hits a card that's already face up, it keeps moving.
Yeah.
So in this case,
I
Cat has
could've
landed
played
on
better.
2 cupcakes.
No.
Oh wait, I meant 0 cupcakes.
0 cupcakes. Oh no, and I only got
So
one.
you only
dude
have
left.
1 ball left to
I'm
try
gonna put it
and
there.
do the thing you want to do. Oh, go throw a card.
Yeah. It's not going great.
So I can put a card down anywhere, even not where the ball is, if I want to mess with the things and stuff. And in fact, that is exactly what I'm going to do.
Well, I clearly don't want to change to blue because then I'd just go straight into that pile. But I might want to
Cat has been left with
set
a
something
terrible
up for the
cupcake position.
future.
So Cupcake started out as a silly idea, and now it has evolved into a... It's a short game. It's 5 to 10 minutes. But
I'm just not going to do anything.
there's a decent amount of strategy in there.
No, I'm going to... Yeah, I'm not going to do anything.
I feel like it's got some similarities to Red 7 in that regard.
Alright.
Alright, so you move there.
Down.
So you do get another turn. Congratulations. We'll draw a card. You've done that. I'm going to discard blue, and that's all I'm going to do. But it does play very quickly, and even for new learners, the game's not going to take very long, so it's a good, very demoable game.
Yeah, I'm just going to do this, which will go there, which will go there. Did the double bluff work?
No, not a cupcake. The cupcake
that
was
one?
in the middle.
Ah.
The cupcake is safe.
I did not squish the cupcake.
This was also not a cupcake.
No, you didn't.
But yeah, that's it. That is Save the Cupcake. It is a nice little bluffing game with simple rules, a little bit of weight to it, and adorable cupcake and fruit art.
I'm really fond of the no cupcake art, actually. I think
Yes, the no cupcake
that's extremely
is
pleasing
probably
and,
the best.
in a very sad sort of way.
So we're going to have about 300 of these, 200 of these at Gen Con for sale at our booth. If people like it a lot, maybe we'll make more after. Maybe this will be the only time you can ever get Save the Cupcake. I don't know. It is a mystery.
I'm going to buy my copy.
It will be like I think we're gonna set it at $12 because short runs are expensive.
Yeah.
And you get the other thing we've done, which I think is important. Even though you only need one Cupcake card to play, we have put 10 misses and 8 hits into the set, so that if one of your cards gets dinged up, your gameplay is not ruined forever.
And also so you can warp things around and make an uber Cupcake game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the goal is for me to squish 5 cupcakes.
Yeah, if you want to do variants with crazy things, you can do that. Oh no, it got really dark.
Hey, the contrast is better. Let's play now.
Well, all we needed was darkness. That's how cupcakes work. Alright, so we will be back tomorrow afternoon to show off Phoenix Syndicate
Yay.
and One Deck Dungeon.
Yay!
2 of our brandy new games that are on demo for Gen Con, but not at sale at Gen Con because they're not out yet. So yes, thank you all for watching, and we will see you again tomorrow.
Bye!